Hey everybody, welcome to TRCOA's Behind the Groove. I am John Stinson, owner of TRCOA. Cool man, today we are going to be setting up beats in Pro Tools. Feel free to introduce yourself and ask questions in the chat as we go along. Cool, so cool man, we're going to talk about beats tonight. When you think about beats in general, Pro Tools isn't always the first, place that you think of when you think about putting together beats. Ableton is probably a choice. You got FL, you got a bunch of other places these days. And, Pro Tools isn't necessarily always the first place, but the thing is Pro Tools actually has a tremendous amount of tools in there to make beats, and since we're in Pro Tools all the time, and certainly, while we're, working with clients and recording vocals, there just may be plenty of times where you want to make beats in Pro Tools. I'm going to cover a few different things tonight. One is going to be using loops in Pro Tools. That Pro Tools actually launched up there. I was having trouble with Pro Tools launching in here. So one of them is going to be using loops, and that's the first thing we're going to do. Then we're going to use samples to do stuff. And then after that, I'm going to show you Boom, which is a plugin in Pro Tools. And then after that, I'm going to show you Expand 2. And they all do quite different things, and there are a lot of little idiosyncratic little pieces and parts to each one. So nonetheless, let's just dive into it. All right. So for right now, I guess what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just hide and make inactive these things. I think that I'm going to come back. I might open some of them up again later, but I'm going to just start from scratch. Okay, so the one thing that we're going to do right now is we're going to import loops. Now, with Pro Tools comes a whole bunch of loops these days, if you hadn't seen it already. And so I'm going to kind of show you what that is. If you've installed everything, all the downloads from Pro Tools, they have a little library of loops and things like that. So first things first, once you launch Pro Tools, right now of course I'm in the edit window, go to the mix window. There's no tracks at this point visible, of course. I have some hidden and made inactive. Command-Shift-I, right? I am going to hit to open up, basically import audio. And so whenever you import audio into Pro Tools, it automatically goes through and finds all the transients and tries to figure out in a file automatically when you import it how many measures it is and all kinds of stuff. And so it does all that stuff, interestingly enough, automatically whenever you import it. And I'll show you what that looks like in Pro Tools. It basically analyzes any audio file that you bring in. So just so that you know where this is, I'm in Documents, right? And then in Pro Tools, and then you go down to, Sound Libraries, and then of course Avid Loop Master 1.0. And this is a relatively new thing. We actually have a library from the past too. And it's actually up here at the studio, but through the years, as Pro Tools has come out, they've had different kind of loop libraries, and so that we have a whole bunch of them from the past, like literally, like I don't even know how many gigs of loops. But nonetheless, this is a pretty cool one, and so I've been playing around with a few of them, and certainly you've got a lot to work with if you use this. Okay. So let's get into it pretty quickly because there's going to be a lot of little details and I want to make this as kind of fast and concise as possible. Also too, of course, while I'm going along, if you guys have questions, go ahead and hit it in the chat. I'll try and refresh. Sometimes it doesn't show up in here, but I'll try and refresh it to make sure I get the questions. Okay, so these loops basically have a bunch of different things that can kind of interact with each other. You'll have like a snare track and a kick track, or a kick and snare track, a hi-hat track, bass parts, all kinds of different stuff. So the first thing we're going to do, you can see right here, they're loops and then they have one-shots. And we're going to import both, but the first thing we're going to do is loops. And I'm going to show you how to work with that. Okay? So we have drums, right? You can see there's effects, there's kind of random music sounds, and then bass loops as well. And we're going to import a little bit of each one, but we're going to start with drums. And so what I'm looking for right off the bat is just a kind of a backbone beat. And so let's just see what we have here. Let's just go ahead and listen to them for a second. That's pretty straightforward, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and add that one, okay? Because that one's definitely kind of just a meaty, straightforward one. And here again, if you remember when you do add tracks, copy would probably be better. I'm just going to add them in this particular case. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and copy as well. And the bottom line is, if you just hit add, it's literally just going to reference the original track. And so, just keep that in mind when you do that. This session is not one that I'm going to keep, but if you would probably want to copy it into your session, right? And then that way, that session has all the audio files in it, and it's kind of self-contained. Otherwise, if you remove the files, then they'll be gone at that point, and they won't be attached, right? So if you left and brought the session somewhere and you didn't have the audio files, the session wouldn't work, obviously. So that's why normally you copy it, and almost never do you just add. In this particular case, I am probably just because it's all right here and self-contained. So anyway, so for whatever that's worth. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. That's pretty cool. I like that. So let's go ahead and go down to the next one. And we're going to kind of bring all these things together. Don't like that. Don't like that. Kind of like that. This I like. Okay. All right, so I'm going to bring in those four. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and put them on a new track. Okay. Now, this is one thing that you do generally want to understand. Oh no, Pro Tools quit. So this may be a bummer. If Pro Tools doesn't launch, but it's still open. Okay, so Pro Tools has been kind of giving me grief, so just whatever that's worth. Okay, so I'm playing all these loops. Now, there's a few different things to know about Pro Tools tracks in general when you're dealing with loops. The first thing you want to do is you want to lock the tempo of the session. I'm going to hit Command 1 to bring up the transport. But you want to lock the tempo of the session to the loop. And every time you bring in a loop, you want to lock that loop to the session, okay? And that's kind of important because you're going to see all the things we're going to do, in a little bit. And all those things that you do are going to be reliant on Pro Tools being kind of connected to the loop in time, right? And the tempo. Now, when you import these, you can see it says 140, so you know the tempo is 140 in this particular case. But very often when you're dealing with a loop that's out on the web, or you're importing something random, you're not going to know the tempo. So I'm going to show you a quick way to figure that out, okay? Also to remember, snare drums are usually on beat 2, so most things are in 4/4, not always, but mostly, and certainly the stuff we're going to be listening to right now is going to be in 4/4. So let's listen to this first one, if we can listen to it. Yep, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. So that would be 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. So the very end of this, I'm using the tab button to go to the end of the track. I'm going to hit Command I, which is going to allow me to make a marker. Now, right now, because the tempo of the session is already at the same tempo as the song, it's saying it's measure 5. Now, normally I would say this is measure 3, but the reality is that's probably half time, because the rest of the other beats are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then it would land on 5. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5 at this point, just because that's the case. So, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. When you do that, up here, it's going to tell you, right, what the tempo is, right? And you can see right there, the tempo is 140, right? So let's just do this, just for kicks. Let's say that your loop ended there, and I hit Command I, right? And I said, hey, that's measure 5, right? Well, then it would tell you what it is then. Now, this is a weird number because obviously, in this particular case, I'm just randomly placing something, but you can see it's 192.5431. So, obviously if your loop was exactly that, I would probably do like 192.5 or something like that. But nonetheless, that's how you would figure out exactly the tempo of that original file. And that is important, right? Because then what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take it out of conductor mode and then put it in that tempo. And in this particular case, it is 140, so we're already there. Because what then I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these tracks and I'm going to put them in tick-based. And what tick-based allows you to do, I'm holding the Option key down, by the way. What tick-based allows you to do, so I'm changing all the tracks at once by holding Option. What tick-based allows you to do is now when you change the tempo, the loop itself is going to change, okay? And so you can move the tempo up and down. You can actually then draw, if you put it in conductor mode at that point, then you can actually draw in tempos, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So the other thing that I'm going to do as well, though, because there is one other piece that you have to do before this actually works, right? If you just put it in tick-based, all of your individual cuts are going to spread out and stretch together as you change the tempo. Well, we don't really want that. We actually want the beat within the loop to actually stretch. And so in order to do that, you do have to put it in elastic audio. So I'm also going to hold down the Option key and I'm going to click here and go to Rhythmic Elastic Audio, okay? And that's very important. So now we're in Rhythmic Elastic Audio. So the cool thing is now if you change the tempo, I'm going to put it at 100, right? Right? Slower, right? And if I want to, I can come over here now and I can put it in, 125, right? Right? Okay, cool. And so let's listen to some of these others too, just for fun. Okay, cool. That's that one. Okay, cool. And then just all of them together. Let's just listen. Okay, cool. All right. So the neat part is here, right, is, for one, you can change the tempo. Let's say that's just not the right thing and you want to be at 150 or something. Let's just say 155. Let's just say that's the tempo, right? Right? And everything's going to shift that way, which is really cool. Okay, so the next thing here, right? You guys all know you could do things like, select this and hit Command D, which would duplicate it. Well, that's cool, but there's an extra function that's actually even cooler. You can take the trimmer tool and put it in loop, and in this particular case, you can take the end here and loop that out, right? like so. And you can loop it out as far as you want, right? And now it's kind of all tied together, which makes it more functional, and I'll show you different reasons why. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just, loop these out. Now let's just say next thing I'm going to do too is I'm going to put it in grid mode. Right now I'm just in slip mode, so I can select random sections and just do what I want. But I'm going to put it in grid mode, and of course we are in bars and beats. It's one thing I didn't mention at the very beginning too. If you were in minutes and seconds, you would want to switch to bars and beats first right off the bat. That's one thing I didn't mention right at the very beginning. But you definitely would want to be in bars and beats, not minutes and seconds. Obviously we're dealing with measures and so forth, so make sure you're in bars and beats to start with. Okay, so the nice thing is too, in grid mode, and in this particular case, of course, my grid I think is at a half note here, it looks like. Yep, half notes. You can switch that resolution to quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. I might do quarter notes just for kicks, just to have a little bit of more, refinement to what I'm going to select and delete. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to undo this loop, and I'm going to just, I'm going to loop these out a little farther, right? Let's just go, just loop these out like this. So we've got this beat, and I'm just going to kind of just show you guys a little bit what you can do, right? Oh, actually that I don't want looped. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take this and put it kind of in here in the middle, right? And all right, so what I am going to do is I'm going to take the beat out during that whole thing, just for fun. And this is just trying to give you guys an example a little bit of just creatively, once you start getting these loops in, you can kind of lay them out, loop them, and then kind of cut sections in and out as you want to do so, right? And so let's just listen to this for a second. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select all. I'm going to turn all these down. I'm going to make a new stereo master fader here too, just so I can see my final output to make sure I'm not, slamming things too much. Not HP drums, but mix output. Okay, cool. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and import another loop. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a bass loop. And let's see, there was one in here that was kind of... Okay, cool. We're going to bring it into a new track. Now, this is a good example of something, okay? And I want to make sure you guys get this. Remember, all these other tracks right now, if I change the tempo, they're going to mold to the tempo. Now, I know this one is 140, right? The one that I just brought in. But even if I didn't, right, what I could do is right now, because you would need to adhere this new track in tempo to all of the existing tracks, and you can do that, right? What you have to do is make sure it's in sample based. So that means when the tempo changes, this is not going to be manipulated, right? And so then I'm going to put it in conductor mode, and then I'm going to come in here, tab to the end of it, hit Command I, and of course you need to count how many measures it is, but in this particular case, it's going to be 4 measures, and at the end of it, it's going to be measure 5. So I'm going to hit go. Of course, that would tell me it's at 140, right? I would take it out of conductor mode potentially, put it at 140, right? Now this loop is locked in with the session because we know that it's 140. Now, you know, if it was 150 or 155, you would put it at 155. All your other tracks are going to go to 155, so then they're all going to be aligned at that point, right? Which is cool. And so then all you have to do once you've done that is put that track in tick-based and then put it in elastic audio. And I'm going to use a Rhythmic elastic audio. You could, in this particular case, since it's a pitch, you could put it in monophonic or polyphonic, but I'm just going to use Rhythmic, I think. We'll see how that sounds. Okay, cool. So now, right, turn this down a little bit. All right, so let's turn that again. Okay, cool. Okay, so now, of course, when I change the tempo back to 155 or whatever, right, it's going to be locked in with it. Okay, and I'm going to take the looper tool, of course, and I'm going to loop that out to this whole section. And let's just kind of see what happens here, right? Okay, cool. So you get the idea, right? You can loop things, you can change tempos, you can lock tempos together, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys don't have any questions about all that stuff. I'm going to see if I can refresh, because I'm going to move on to kind of the next concept here. And I just want to make sure that I'm getting y'all's questions, if you have any. Give me a minute to see if I can refresh this. Where is my... Okay. Yep, okay, cool. Quest, how's it going? Cool. There you go. Miss you too, Corey. Okay, so let's see here. Awesomeness. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up. Let's see what we have next. The next thing I want to do is show you how to quantize, okay? I want to show you a little bit of the inner workings of what Pro Tools is doing with this stuff, but then we're going to quantize this stuff, and we're going to do some trippy things because you can really transform beats. You know, obviously I've laid a few things out, cut a few sections up, pretty simple stuff, but you can really go to the next level with this and do different things. Whenever Pro Tools uses elastic audio, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, right? Command bracket. I'm actually going to turn KeyCaster back on. I hope this doesn't screw anything up, just so you guys can see my key commands. But you can go to analysis mode on any one of these tracks. What that shows you is where Pro Tools thinks the transients are. Do you see this like this? And so when we go in here and we quantize this stuff, it's going to actually move those things to the places that it's going to move those little markers to the quantized positions, right? And I'm going to show you what that's all about here in a minute. So if for some reason Pro Tools wasn't getting all these little hits right, you could go in here and either move, add, or do different things with it. But usually when you hover over this, it allows you to move them back and forth. You can also usually hold the control key down to add them, and then you can hold the option key down to delete them. And so I'm not real sure why it's not doing it right now, but it's not. And that would be that. So then you can go to warp mode usually, and you can usually grab these and move them, which it looks like we can do that. So you can see if you hold the shift key down, the reason you hold the shift key down is because if you grab it, it's going to literally kind of move everything spread out at once, and usually that's not what you want to do, right? So if you hold the shift key down, it'll make a marker here and there, and you can warp it, and you can move notes in different places. Now, that's not what we're going to do right now, but I did want to kind of just show you how Pro Tools deals with elastic audio. excuse me, which also allows you to, you know, when you're drum editing and you need to move a drum hit somewhere, you can do this. Now, or, you know, it gets a little tricky though, because when you have a full drum kit and you're trying to move one tom, you've got bleed and then you've got to move them all. So it does get a little messy, but you can do this kind of stuff when you are editing drums, and that's a whole nother lesson. But what we're going to do instead is I'm going to go ahead and leave this in waveform view. I'm going to hit Option A to bring everything into full view. I'm going to select everything, and let's see if we can just hit Command A on everything. So what I did is I clicked here to select all the way across, and then I hit Command A to select everything. I'm going to go to Event Operations, and Quantize, which by the way is Command O, I believe. Oh, excuse me, not Command O, but Option O. Yeah, I usually don't use the key command, but there it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on swing, and I'm going to do 100% swing, and I'm going to start with 16th notes, and we're going to see what that does. Okay, so let's listen to that, and you're going to get to hear, because what it just did is moved all those notes across the board to be swung. And I'm not going to get too much into what swing does, but basically it turns everything into triplets. And so anyway, let's listen to what it sounds like. Okay, cool. I'm going to undo that just so you can hear what the original one sounded like. So I'm going to apply it while we're going along here so you can hear it. Okay, so now I'm going to do 8th note triplets, which is going to even be more dramatic, but let's take a look at that. Okay, let's see what that sounds like. Okay, cool. So you get the idea. So you can really, I'm going to undo that again just so that you can hear it, right? This was the original, right? I'm going to redo it. Pretty different in its vibe. Right? Okay, cool. So you get the idea. And you could do all kinds of different grooves. There's all kinds of variations of grooves and swing. You can do different amounts. And so let's look at what that does a little bit to the file, just so that you can see it. I'm going to go ahead and go into warp mode so you can kind of see all the little triangles are the ones that it's moved, right? So I'm going to undo it just for fun. So this is no warp, and then boom, that's everything warped and moved. So yep, so you can see you can use regular samples and sample loops and do some pretty dramatic things, changes to them if you want to, even within the loop, and then loop them out and all that kind of stuff. Okay, back to playlists. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, so that's using loops. And remember, by the way, just to get back to the tempo again for the second, right? Oh, I got a question. I am so glad you made this video, beat production. I would love to see a seminar using MIDI to create from start. Okay, well, I'll probably show you a little bit with MIDI too, maybe today. But we're gonna do a little bit on the keyboard. And MIDI is kind of an interesting function these days, and I'll show you a few little things. Okay, but tempo, right? So as you know, now you can change the tempo to whatever you want. Right now we are in non-conductor mode, which means when you change the tempo, the whole thing changes from top to bottom, right? But if you wanted to, you could put it in conductor mode, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. This bar up here is your tempo bar, right? And I'm going to go ahead and delete the first one. Right now the first one's in 140. I can double click on that and start my tempo at, I don't know, 150, let's say, if we wanted to do it a little faster. Let's even do 155, just because I think that's actually kind of cool. I kind of like the 155. But then you can actually open up this tempo guy, and you can even draw in tempos if you want to, right? And so I know this would be nutty and kind of silly, but you could do it if you wanted to draw in tempos. And I think, as you probably saw, I think Ben did a seminar too, you can do shapes. So this is a line, a straight line. So I could even do this and make it crazy towards that last beat. You know, so we'll see how fast this gets. I think it's going to go nuts. But let's see what it sounds like. It's going to go up to 240. Right, so obviously that'd be insane, but nonetheless kind of cool. You can kind of see what that looks like. Let me open this up so I can make sure and see you guys. Cool, yeah, okay, cool. So anyway, so that is tempo. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close that up because this will apply, what you just saw with tempo will apply to everything else that we do. All right, so I'm going to hold down the Option key and I am going to minimize things a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to leave them where they are right now. Command-Shift-I, I'm going to bring in single hits now, okay? So this would be using single hits to make beat stuff, which you can do. So these are single samples, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's do drum hits, let's do kick. Let's just see what we got kick-wise. Oop, that's pretty good. I'm going to add that one. Let's do snares. Let's see. I don't know. I kind of like that one. Let's try that one. And then let's go ahead and do a hi-hat. That's pretty cool. I think I'm going to use that one. All right, so let's try that. All right, we're going to bring them in on new tracks. Now these tracks are all going to be in sample based right now, okay? So what we're going to want to do is switch them all to tick based because we're going to be in bars and beats and we're going to be doing all this to tick. I'm also, in this particular case, you actually don't need to turn on elastic audio, but you know, you can if you want to, it's not going to hurt anything, but at this point, the tempo is going to change and all the samples are going to spread out, and as I move them around, they're going to spread out to the tempo, so automatically. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, cool. So let's see, the first one here. Okay, so that's our hat. I'm actually going to just loop it as is and just see, actually, you know what, it's not a length of let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to put it in grid mode. I'm going to show you guys relative grid here in a minute too. But I am going to go ahead and just fade this sucker a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to group this, and I'm going to tell you guys what group is here in a little bit so that you understand. But what I am going to do is go to group like that so it makes it into one thing, which allows me to then come in here and loop it. All right, let's just loop this. I'm just curious. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to start with that. Let's see what this guy is. This is our kick drum. Okay, so I'm going to keep this super simple, and we're going to do a kick, snare. Okay, let's go ahead and solo this. All right, and so I'm going to do the same thing, holding down Option. Yep, let's do that again. Okay, so then let's go ahead and add the snare to the last one. I'm actually going to chop the end of this a little bit so that it's a clean loop here, because that's what we're making. Okay, so that's 3 measures. Let's go ahead and do one more. Let's see what we're gonna do here, because I thought I was doing 4 measures, but I was only up to 3. So let's do one more. And let's see, what are we gonna do here to kind of make this interesting? I don't know, let's just see. Let's see what this sounds like. I'm gonna put this in loop. Okay, cool. Okay, let's say that's it. It's kind of cheesy a little bit, but let's just do that. Okay, so what we're gonna do then in that case, you can, the cool part is you can take all of this, right, and select it all literally across tracks if you want to. And then you can go up to clip and you can make a group, right? And boom, you can group it. And now what that does is now you can actually loop that group, right? And so I'm gonna zoom back a little bit and I'm going to loop that out, right? Just like we did the other stuff. And the cool thing is now too, you could also, now there's really not much to quantize here, but you could quantize stuff too, right? So if I wanted to, I don't think it's gonna change it much, but I could come up to event operations quantize, and it'll quantize that stuff just like I did the other stuff, right? Although it's not allowing me quantize. Oh, this is elastic audio, so of course you'd have to do audio clips, hit apply, and in this particular case, it's not gonna do much because we don't really have 16th note or 8th notes, right? So we're just doing quarter note hits. So there's really not much to quantize. It'll put it on the beat, but it's not gonna swing it right now, right? You have to have 8th notes in your hi-hat, okay? So we might actually do that. So I'm gonna import real quick one of the other hi-hats that's a short hi-hat. Let's see if that's the best one. That's it, right? Okay, did I hit import? I didn't, I just listened to it and didn't import it. Yeah, okay, that's it. Add it, hit done, new track. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and put my resolution of my grid on, let's go ahead and do 16th notes, okay? And then I'm just holding down the Option key and doing this, right? All right, and then I'm gonna do a few more, and then boom, I think that's one measure, right? Let's just solo that so we can hear it. Okay, that's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be really fast. Okay, cool. But what I'm gonna do is select that section right there, and I'm going to go ahead and go to clip, and I'm gonna go to group, okay? And then I can loop that out, you know, just like I did the other stuff, right? Boom. And of course, let's just see. All right, and then of course, this is where you can see, if I go to event, I go to event operations quantize. Now I can do 8th note swing. Let's see what that does. I think it should do something, but it's not right now, is it? Why is it not? Let's try 16th note. Oh, it's really not doing anything, is it? It should, and it's not. I wonder if I have to ungroup it. I shouldn't. Probably should have tested this before I did it. Yeah, I probably have to ungroup it. I might be simply because I literally double grouped it. Ungroup. Yeah, okay, there we go. So of course you can quantize it in that particular case. Also, since it's in tick-based, right, remember, well actually it's not right now, so that's one, you know, that's probably why it wasn't doing this, because I didn't have it in tick-based. But nonetheless, you need to put it in tick-based so that when you change the tempo, right? So if you go in and you change the tempo now, we're in conductor mode, I'm gonna take it out of that, now move to 65, it stays in tempo with everything. So you need to make sure you have your tracks in tick bass or it won't move with it. Okay, cool. So that is that. So that is in general making individual hits, right? And just to kind of interact with everything, right? You could, you know, just to give you an idea, right? Yeah, so anyway, so you guys can get an idea of kind of how you can kind of assemble everything. And here again, right, at any time, if I'm not in conductor mode, I could even make it, you know, faster, the whole thing, right? Or I can put it in conductor mode, and then I can use my tempo bar here to either add a tempo, right? If you leave this closed, you can hold down the the control key and add tempo markers, right? Or if you wanted to, and I'll just add one for fun, let's say that we're gonna change it to 170 at measure 5, okay? So obviously before that, and then it's gonna speed up, right? If you wanna delete that, you can hold down the Option key and delete it, right? Then you can open up the tempo section here, and then of course you can take the pencil tool or whatever you want to do and draw in tempo changes. Okay? Cool. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you guys in the next few minutes, so we don't go too long, is I'm going to show you boom. I'm going to make a new track, Command-Shift-N, and I'm going to make a new stereo instrument track. I'm going to have to turn my audio down because I'm getting dinged a bunch right now. So I'm gonna make a new stereo instrument track, right? Okay, cool. Then I am going to go in plugins, I'm gonna go to instrument and I'm gonna open up Boom. Boom is a, for lack of better terms, it is a step record, you know, step sequencer basically, right? And it has its own built-in sounds and all that stuff. And it's pretty cool because it interacts directly with Pro Tools, locks into the tempo, does all these things, and I'm going to kind of show you guys how that works. The best way generally to use either this or Expand is on an instrument track. It makes it the easiest. Instrument tracks both combine an instrument and MIDI in the same track, okay? You could make a MIDI track separately and then make an aux input, which is kind of how things used to be in Pro Tools a long time ago before they made instrument tracks. But instrument tracks kind of delve everything together or kind of, you know, put everything together in one. And what that allows you to do is, you know, you record enable that track and boom, you're no pun intended, but you are, of course, manipulating that particular plugin, okay? The way step record generally works, right, and not always, but definitely in this particular case, this has 16 hits, right? It's basically 16th notes. So what you're looking at is either a measure or some different variation of that, right? You have 16 different patterns. You have 16 different notes to deal with, depending on whether you're editing or not. And then you have, potentially 16 different, well, I guess the patterns would be the other piece to that. So you're always looking at 16, and that's what these 16 are. So you can also trigger these, right? Right now I'm triggering number 13, right? Our tempo is pretty fast right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and slow it down. So let's make, I'm gonna take it out of conductor mode and I'm just gonna put our tempo at like 140, okay? Maybe a little faster, let's do 150-ish, okay. So, still pretty quick, of course. So I'm gonna go up here. I'm also gonna make sure, I'm gonna switch this right now, guys, so you can see me using the keyboard. Cool. Okay, so you can see that's 1, so C is 1, C sharp is 2, then you have 3, right? And then 4, and you go up chromatically and you can play each one, right? Okay, now that's playing all the different patterns, okay? So it can kind of give you an idea. Now you can do the same thing by selecting the pattern and just hitting play, right? Right? And now you're listening to each pattern, okay? Now then you can edit the pattern by clicking here, and then you're going to start editing the pattern, okay? Now this gets a little tricky because what this is showing you is every time the kick drum is going to hit in 16th notes. So let's look at that. So you can see it's going through the pattern here. You can see it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's showing you which hits are hitting. And on each one, you have 3 velocities, right? You have nothing, you have really bright, you have medium bright, you have dim, and then off again. And so you have 3 different velocities that you can do with each hit. So let's just say right now, right? Oops, let's do this, sorry. Boom, 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 boom. So you have a kick drum kind of on 4 on the floor right here, and you can see the third measure is a little heavier than the others. But let's just say that we, you know, let's just make this one, you know, really light, this one really light. Let's listen to that. Right? So you can do that, or maybe make nothing at the beginning. Right? And that's the kick drum. So then we could go to the snare drum, right? And add a few snare drums. Right? And so you can edit the patterns that way as you go through it. Rim shot, clap, and you can even change the sound. There's about 8 different sounds, I think, for each one, maybe 10. You can also do that up here, by the way, kind of fast, right? So you could be like, I want low toms, right? And you click it once, twice, 3 times, and then it's off, so forth and so on. So we could, you know, make a whole series of toms if we wanted to. Oh, and the tom's like a burp, burp, burp noise, so I didn't think I thought I was going to get an actual tom sound. So there's some other cool things that you can do with this, right? You can then change the decay, you can tune things. Let's say that we wanted that kick. Here, let's do this. So we do this. Right? Make that kick really low, which is kind of cool. Okay? All right. So now, remember, we are in pattern edit right now. If we go back to pattern select, we know we're on 3, which I believe is this one, right? So then what we can do, right, and let's go ahead and do this, right? We can hit record. I'm going to hit, well, let's kind of turn some of this stuff down or off. I'm going to solo this for right now just so that we don't have so many things playing. Okay, so you can't really do much more than that, but you can, it's kind of cool, right? So you can hit F12, 2, 3, 4. This is where that build is. See what that sounds like in context of everything. So just to show you guys, because I don't think it's up on the screen here, fit to window, just so you can see, this is my MIDI track that I just recorded, right? And all I recorded in there was literally just 2 hits, right? So it's on clips right now, but you could go to notes and you can kind of see what that looks like. All right, so let's just unsolo everything and just see what it looks like. I'm going to unrecord, enable it. Now it's playing this pattern, right? Stop, right? Doesn't necessarily work all that great with this, but yeah. So sounds pretty horrible, but but nonetheless gives you kind of an idea. And you could, of course, not be doing any of these things. Oh, and that's another thing too that to keep in mind. The one cool thing is once you start, because in order to trigger this, you do need to, use MIDI to do it, right? And so you do have to figure out what notes you want to use, right? And we could draw in different notes, right? And then we can come in here and we can even put them in certain places if you want to. So let's just look at what this looks like. Okay. But you can also then change swing if you wanted to, and dynamics. So if you do want it to have a lot of dynamics, right, you can do that if you want no dynamics. And then if you want it to swing like crazy, or you can have no swing. Okay, so just to give you an idea, you can do those things as well. Okay, the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and mute that. I'm going to do one more and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to make a new, excuse me, that's not what I wanted to do. Command-Shift-N is what I wanted. I want a new stereo instrument track. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in expand. So let's go ahead and do that. Instrument, expand to. Now, expand is generally a keyboard sound. Here, give me just a minute to close this. I'm going to solo this, record, enable it. Right, there's all kinds of keyboard sounds in expand, and it's a pretty cool one. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go ahead and take that off, no insert. Okay, I just wanted to open this. Let's put this up here. Okay, but what you're going to do is you're going to click on this and go down to loops, all right? And there are a bazillion in here. You can play around with them, right? But pretty cool because this reacts a little bit differently than some of the others, right? What you can do with this is you can hit record and you can kind of perform it. Oh, hold on a second. Yep, we're already recording. I'm going to hit Command period. I want to solo something in here so we have something to listen to. All right, so I'm going to undo that. Let's try this again. F12. So can give you kind of an idea. I'll show you guys the MIDI track and what it looks like, right? So this is the MIDI track, but you can trigger the downbeat, get that old school kind of, trigger the beat kind of vibe. And Quest, by the way, too, if you are still out there, of course, this is where I believe, no, it must be on, it's actually on Boom. But what you can do with Boom as well, and I'm just going to show you real quick, with Boom, it has individual hits as well, right? So we need to make a click track right now. I'm going to go up to the track menu, create click, so I have something to play along with. All right. And then all right, so then I'm going to record enable this track. I'm going to go ahead and delete everything I have on here. The reason I'm doing this is because this would be using MIDI to do the track from the beginning. So of course you could use Boom just for its sounds if you'd wanted to. Of course, then you can select this, go to Event Operations, Quantize, and then maybe take Swing off and then Quantize that sucker. Cool. So that's Boom using individual sounds, right? So just to come back to expand one more time too, because it's distinctly different, right? How it triggers loops. But I did want to just kind of show you just one more loop in here just for fun before we get off. I'm record enabled with the wrong thing. Still listening to... And if you go up and down in pitch, it plays it in higher pitches. It doesn't play it faster, it just plays it in a higher pitch. It's always going to lock to the tempo of the session. But you can do that kind of stuff. Cool. I think that's it. That should give you guys some stuff to go on, maybe too much all at once, but there you go. All right. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're enrolled, of course, please go to the Seminars tab on the my.trcoa website and take the quiz over tonight's lesson. Do have a few questions for you guys there. If you need to book one-on-one time, you can always book time with me. You can book it with Ben or any of your other instructors as well, of course. Please send an email or a text to make that happen. If you're not enrolled, of course, go to trcoa.edu to find out more information. Also, please post in the chat. You guys have been pretty good about that. Quest just posted a little bit about some stuff, of course. But, you know, post in the chat about things you'd like to see in our upcoming live streams, and we definitely will take a close look at it and make it happen eventually, of course. And as always, subscribe to our channel. Okay, guys, well, take care. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.